Hey, it's Form Check Friday. You're here. I'm here. Let's do the intro. Okay, guys, welcome back to Form Check Friday. Thank you again to everybody who posted links. We've got a handful this time, which is good. You know the rules. I haven't seen any of these, so we're going to go through them together. We're all going to learn. It's going to be a great time. Let's see what we're dealing with here. So, thank you. Not sure if depth on these squats are enough. The whole box thing set up is 14 inches. Haven't tried this before, but I must say it was fun to try a new way of doing this. All right. So let's see what we got here. Jonas. Okay. What are we dealing with? I have decided I'm going to pull the volume down on these because I'm afraid YouTube's going to bust me. Oh, okay. So for those of you who haven't seen this before, I usually watch a couple reps, don't really say much, and then we'll get into the details. This is pretty good. I think that box might still be a little too high. We can check. I can try and pause it right at the... Oh, let me see if I can go back. Got to get the timing right on these things. Yeah. This is probably like right at parallel, maybe a little. You probably need it like an inch lower. So what I would do is get rid of that block of wood and see if you have like an extra 45 or even a 25 pound plate laying around, and that will be a little bit thinner. You could just put that on the top and use that as a target, because I think you probably need to get a little bit deeper. This is pretty close, but you're getting the idea. Hip drive, great. Head position, great. Chin tucked. Let's go through these together again. Okay. Everything from the top looks good. Wrists, shoulders, chest is up. Hip drive, you're staying leaned over on the way up. Now we got to watch the knees, because this is the problem you've been having. He's getting your knees forward. Yeah. It's pretty good. Yeah, so again, for those who haven't joined us before, knee slide is a common issue. The knees travel all the way down. The knees travel forward all the way down. And what we want instead is for the knees to go out and stop by about the halfway point, give or take. And then from that point on in the descent, the knees stop moving forward and we focus on the hips sitting back into the bottom. That's how we stretch out the groin muscles and get that bounce. So the reason that he's got a box down there is because that's often a useful tactile cue when you have to reach back and try and tap a target. It just sort of automatically makes someone start sitting back more as opposed to sliding forward the whole way down. So this is what we wanted. Your knees seem to be getting set pretty close. You could pop them forward a little bit harder, like just jet them out. But they're not traveling forward all the way down. Knees forward, sit back, good hip drive. Yeah, I mean, that's the right idea. If I was nitpicking here, I would say try and get the knees further forward faster, right? So it'll feel like you're overdoing it. It'll feel like you're pushing your knees too far forward too quickly. Maybe your weight shifts to your toes a little bit. That's okay. One of the things I tell clients all the time is push them so far forward you think I'm going to yell at you, right? That's too much. Or do so much hip drive, exaggerate the hip drive so much you think I'm going to pull you aside and be like, dude, that was way too much hip drive. Because usually when we get to the point where they exaggerate it, that's the correct amount. And then that becomes the new norm. So it usually, one of the things I tell people a lot is, what you're doing right now is wrong. What you think is correct is incorrect. So the correct thing is going to feel incorrect. So you have to let it feel wrong right? And then it'll be right. And once you do it enough times, the thing that felt wrong suddenly starts to feel right. So I would say just try and pop your knees even further forward, get them set right out over the toes as soon as you can. And that way you'll have more time to stretch back into the bottom, and maybe drop that down. If you want to do this drill again, you can drop that down to a slightly lower, maybe like I think 12 is probably going to be right for you. And then, you can do it on your warm-ups and then get rid of it, because the idea is you need the stretch reflex, and the stretch reflex is going to come, you can't do that with a box in your way. You can't get that bounce, that dip and pop back up. So this is just a drill in, the correct movement pattern. And then you have to kind of remember, like when you're there without the box, you have to envision or, just pretend that the box is there and you're trying to hit it. Overall, very good squat. We have come a long way since you started. And I mean, it was pretty good from the beginning, but you've done a good job correcting the knee slide, and now we're getting closer to depth. So I think you're good to go. Let's do another one, in a week or two where we don't have the box, and see if we can put everything together. Thank you for submitting. As always, we shall move on. Thanks for doing this, Paul. Love the book. Thank you. Wish I had it when I was younger. Right. Me too. That's why I wrote it. Been dealing with some quad tendonitis. Seems to be getting better. Here's my third set of 5 at 275. Let's check it out. Oh, let me get rid of that music. Okay. What do we have here? All right. We got a bunch of B-roll in the front. Let's see if we can see. Okay. So we're looking first at bar placement. Looks like we're on the right track. Really wedging it in there. It's good. Now, real quick, this is a good illustration of what I've talked about before. I want you to, and I'm just picking on you because you're doing this, but I want everybody should treat unracking the bar as a rep. Right? So don't be lazy with unracking the bar. Wedge yourself in there, get your stance exactly the way you'd have it in a squat, get tucked in, tight, chest up, right? Locked in when you don't have all the weight on your back. And then from that position, you just stand up. So it's like a quarter squat or even less to get the bar out of the rack, but treat it seriously. I have had people who tweak their back unracking the bar just because they weren't tight, they weren't giving they weren't taking it seriously. So you definitely want to, like your feet, you're not going to squat with this stance. So don't unrack the bar with that stance. Okay. Enough picking on you for that. All right. Stance looks pretty good. Toes look good. Okay. Good hip drive. This is a good squat. I'm not really saying a lot because there's not a lot to say. Okay. So let's go back and just watch it again and see what we see. I got to turn the volume up a little bit because, and I hope YouTube doesn't flag me for this, but it almost looks like you're breathing out before you go, but let me see if I can catch it. Nope. It was just that first rep. It looked like you exhaled and then did the squat without inhaling again. But on all the rest of them, it looks like you're taking your breath and holding it, and then you're going, which is exactly right. Good. Constant at back angle is holding steady all the way up. Good bounce. A little bit of a shift to the toes on that one, but I mean, it's your last rep, so I'm not going to give you too much crap for it. And knee position looks pretty good. They're getting out. and then stopping. So this is a really good example of what we want with the knees. We just talked about that in the last one. Let's see if I can get my little drawing. Well, what if you watch, and again, if you're, some of you who've seen all of these form check videos I'm gonna sound like a broken record, but there's really only a few problems that we encounter with the squat. So, but if you watch his knees here, right, and they're gonna shoot out, and then we want him to stop and then not move basically past that line. So I think he's doing a real good job of that. So you'll see his knee shoot out. Okay, so right there, that's the knee position, right here. He's got his knees to that position, and this line won't stay on the screen. But the idea is, if I'm going to hit play and that knee shouldn't move any further forward, what we're focusing on at this point with the knee here is just that now that the knee's set, he's sitting back, he's reaching back with his hips, and we're stretching out these groin muscles in here on the inside. Okay, so we'll just keep an eye on his knee right there and see if it stops moving. Yeah. Let me do it again. We'll watch another one. Knees go out, and then the rest, and then they kind of stop, which is exactly what you want. A little bit of a bounce on that one. So it's kind of holding steady, and then right at the bottom it shoots forward a little bit. Very common to see that. And that usually just indicates that you didn't quite get the knee far enough forward. Like because it's sliding into the position it wants to be in, right? Or it needs to be in for you to be balanced at the bottom. So if you put it there, then it can't go any further forward because it's already where it needs to be. If you put it almost there, then right at the bottom, it's going to slide into the final position. And that can irritate your knees. So if you're having patellar tendonitis or something like that, that might have something to do with it, although yours is really subtle. So I wouldn't think that okay, now the more I watch these reps, the more I'm seeing it. So I would say overall, excellent squat. Tiny bit of knee slide. Let me just make sure I read your message correctly. Quad tendonitis. Yeah, it could, there's nothing glaring about your form that would make me think that there's any, clear reason that you would be having tendonitis. Sometimes this shit just happens. Sometimes you just get annoying tendonitis type injuries. I've had I can't even count the number of times where all of a sudden my knee hurts for a couple weeks, or my elbow tendons are just pissed off for sometimes months, and then they just go away. And there's nothing really I remember doing. There wasn't like an event that I noticed this is what caused it. It's just sort of an overuse thing. And they all go away. It takes time. There's no reason to not train. You try and avoid pissing it off more, but you got to train through it as best you can. And then eventually they'll just go away. I remember I had a guy who had this horrible hip pain for months. Months. And we couldn't, his form was great. It's just anytime he went over like 135, his hip just started screaming at him, and God bless him. He kept showing up. And then one day it just didn't hurt anymore, and it never hurt again. And I have no idea why. So you're doing the right thing in, consistently training. I would say that you should maybe work with something like the other guy was doing, where you practice box squatting. So you get the knees forward and then you focus on sitting back into the bottom instead of that little tiny slide into the knee. That could be pissing your quad off. I really don't know. There's guys that can get away with murder in that regard and never have quad pain. So it's hard to say, but it wouldn't hurt to dial that in a little bit. One of the things you can do, and you may have seen it in another video, but you can strap, if you ever squat inside the rack, you can take a rubber band, like a resistance band, and just strap it down here, like across the posts. Definitely need to get a stylus or something. But you can take a rubber band and just kind of strap it back here at the, you have to play around with the right level. And then rather than a box, you can reach back and touch that rubber band. And the advantage of that is you can still do the stretch reflex because it's not a solid piece of wood or plastic. And you can't sit on it. Like a lot of people will unload on a box and lose their tightness. We don't want that. We want you to maintain your tightness and just use that band as like a tactile cue. So a lot of times, you know, the knee sleeves help a lot. And if you didn't have knee sleeves, I would probably recommend that you get them. So anybody who's having knee issues, definitely get these SBD sleeves. Aside from, the order for me is shoes, belt, and then knee sleeves. And then you know, the knee sleeves help because they give you a little proprioceptive feedback on your knee. So the material kind of stretching on your knee it immediately lets you kind of know what your knees are doing in space in a way that you can't with just shorts on. So I've seen people put knee sleeves on and their squat just like transforms. So you've got those. The next thing I would do is just try some sort of tactile like box or band that'll give you a little feedback at the bottom, you know, and encourage you to sit back, reach back for that band. Don't slide forward, because if you slide forward like you're doing, you're going to miss the band, right? So you have to sit back, and that helps a lot. So other than that, these look really good, and thanks for submitting them. It's a good looking squat. Okay, moving on. Okay, we got the couple. Cool. Husband and wife. So 2 options for you to choose from. I think I'll do both. Why not? My 260 by 5 squat and my wife's 230 by 3 deadlift. All right. I want to see both of these. Here we go. Okay. Oh no. Oh, silence. Okay, cool. We won't get flagged for this. All right. Good hip drive here. His back angle staying consistent on the way up. Wrists, bar position looks good. All right. So this is an easy one. So here's the main problem with any error that I see that I would bother pointing out will be fixed with one basically correction. And that is, I believe your stance is too wide. So I don't think again, it's hard to tell with these camera angles, but I think if I came and stood behind you, I would see your knees where I want them out here. If I stood behind you, they'd probably be caving in a little bit. And that is honestly a factor, I believe, of your stance being too wide. So if your heels are too far apart, it's hard to push your knees out, right? So we want heel here and knee out here, right? Like that. And I believe if your feet are too far out, then your knees are gonna cave in much more easily than they would if you did the opposite, kept the feet closer together and jacked the knees out real hard. So let me just see if I can. Now, the caveat here is I could be totally wrong about this, right? So again, it's a limitation of camera angles and trickery with focal lengths and lenses and whatnot. So, and we've got a bunch of posts in the way too, but it looks to me like you're just not getting your knees out very hard. Yeah. So it looks like they're kind of going out a little bit, and then as you come down to the bottom, they're caving in and then up. So the knees go in. It's almost like a circular pattern, right? That you shove them out here, and then as you reach closer to the bottom, they come in a little bit, and then they kind of stay in on the way up. So that's not what we want, right? We want your knees out hard, right? Let me see. I think I saved a picture. I've been trying to save some what do we got? Some coaching stuff to use, like videos and just good examples. Let me see here. If I can bring this in. There was a front. Oh, there we go. Okay. So this guy, right? See his knees here? This is, I mean, that's what you want. When you're at the bottom, that's what you should see, right? Knees out real hard. Like he probably, I'm assuming when he started squatting from the top, got his knees out there right away and then just kept him out there. And then on the way up, he's got to keep him out there because they want to pull in. It's easier if they pull in, right? Not the movement will be harder, but it's hard to keep your knees out like that. So if you just kind of give up and relax a little bit, they're going to buckle in. And that's not what we want. We want to keep them out, keep that muscle mass engaged and involved in the lift. So just think about that when you're at the bottom. Again, broken record time, pause squats. And I have to do a video about this. I'll try and get that done this week or something. But with the empty bar and maybe in your case, 135, 95, 135, go down to the bottom, pause for 3 seconds and ask yourself, is my weight balanced or am I on my toes or my heels? That's one thing to check. And then where are my knees? Are they out? Could they be out more? If Paul walked up behind me and put his hands on my knees, could he pull them out a couple inches on each side? If I could do that, then you didn't shove them out hard enough. Okay? So you go down, you count to 3, and you check balance. You check, is my chest still up or did I let that cave in? And then you check, are my knees as shoved out as they could be? And then once you've checked those things, you come back up. So it takes about 3 seconds down there to pause. It also teaches you to stay tight in the bottom position, to go down and have to hold it for a couple seconds. So that's a good one to do with the empty bar and then some lightweight 95, 135. Go down, count to 3, check those things, and then come back up. And then the goal is, like I say, it's a game. After the first rep, can you go down to that perfect position without having to adjust anything? Can you go down there for 3 seconds and just not have to shift anything because you nailed it, right? That's the game you're playing with yourself. So try and use those and think about narrow your stance a little bit. Again, we want heels under the shoulders and then knees out harder, okay? And I think that's going to fix most of the stuff that I'm seeing here because the top half looks great. The hip drive's good. The back angle's good. It's just you got this knee cave happening. And I didn't even see that mirror in front of you. Maybe I can see what's happening to your knee. Yeah, you can kind of see it. Like, let me see if I can get a good, where's my drawing tool? So I'm looking here at this mirror and we can kind of see you and we can see your leg right there. So if I hit play, we should be able to see what your knee does. This is kind of helpful. All right, so that looks pretty good on the way out, but it does look like it's coming in a little bit. Yeah, you can kind of see it. Like it's here, right? Like that. And then as soon as you start pushing up, it's going to move this way. Like that. Let me see here. Yeah. And I don't know what's happening with the other leg, but yeah, you can even see your calf kind of caving in a little bit. So I think that's the big one. Just focus on getting the knees out harder, keeping them out, and I think you'll be good to go. The rest of it looks great. Okay, let's check out your wife. Okay. Oh, wait a minute. Hang on. Let's start that again. Okay. Okay. Impressive pull there. Sorry, my dog just farted. It's so loud. Anyway, okay. Clint, dude, what do you... Okay, I mean, I don't know if you guys can see him. There he is. Yeah, this is Clint right here. That's what he does. Okay. You're not helping me, man. All right, let's go back to this. Okay, so first of all, like I said, impressive pull, 230 by 3. That's no joke. Good job. There's a few things with the setup that I would correct. So let's watch it again. The first thing is, if you follow the way that we want you to do the setup procedure for the deadlift is a very specific method. So you're going to line the bar up over the middle of your foot, which will be 1 inch away from the shin. So when you look down, you see about an inch of space between your shin and the barbell. It should be right over your shoelaces, like the bow in your shoelaces or close to the strap if you have weightlifting shoes on. And then when you reach down to grab the bar, you're not going to bend your knees. You're going to keep your knees as straight as possible, right? And then once you have your hands around the bar, right, then you can bend your knees just enough to touch the bar. And that tells you how high your hips need to be. Okay, so line your feet up, reach down and grab the bar with straight locked knees if you can, or as straight as you can keep them depending on your flexibility. But most women can do it with locked knees. And then once you have your hands and your grip set, bend your knees until the point that your shins touch the bar and no more. Don't move the bar, right? It's right over the middle of the foot where it needs to be. So you just bend your knees till your shins touch. That's your hip height. Remember what that feels like. And then from there, you take a breath, squeeze your chest up, little tiny pause, and then you drag it up your legs. So when you bend down, you're kind of bending your knees already. You're doing both of those steps, the bending down part and the bending your knees at the same time. It's not the end of the world, but it does create a more consistent setup when you follow the procedure and break those steps. We'll break each part into different steps. It looks to me right here like you're on your toes a little bit. So your weight is a little bit, now it could be that the camera's just angled a little bit, but it looks to me like you've got a little bit too much pressure on the balls of your feet. And so okay, so this is a good one, or this is a teaching moment for everybody. So always talking about the hip height, right? So tying back into that procedure where I said, keep your legs straight and then bend your knees just enough to touch the bar. That keeps your hips where they need to be. And the reason that that's where they need to be is because if you drop them, then your shins will push the bar forward of the middle of your foot. Okay. And then it's not over the middle of your foot anymore. That's not where it's coming up off the ground, right? With anything heavy, it's coming off the ground over the middle of the foot. So we'd like you to just put it there and keep it there and move it in a straight line, because that's the most efficient way to move the load. If you nudge it out in front of the middle of your foot, then before it comes up off the ground, it has to swing in, and it's a much less efficient bar path. Okay, so if this is the hip height that we're saying is correct for you with your hips that high, watch what happens when you start the pull, which is you're going to drop your butt. And so if you watch the plates, if you watch the lettering on the USA, when she sets her back, she's right. So the plates roll, the bar swings out off of her legs. Let's see it. So we can see it again. Yeah. So it's off the middle of the foot as she's picking it up off the ground, right? And you've got way too much weight on your toes. Okay. So we want that thing to drag up your legs. So there's a couple things we want to do here. So in the deadlift, in all the lifts that we coach, except for the bench press, the goal is even pressure on the toes and the heels, right? Any of the lifts where you're standing on your 2 feet, I want even pressure across the whole surface of the foot, right? Toes and heels, even, right? And if you can move the weight on the press or on the squat, and you just keep that pressure even the whole time, it doesn't go to your toes, it doesn't go to your heels, chances are you're doing the lift correctly. Most of the errors that you make on a squat or a press will change that on the foot. And if you just correct for the foot pressure, chances are you're going to correct the lift. So I've talked about this a lot before. In the deadlift, I actually want about 60-40. So I want about 60% of the pressure on your heels and the rest on your toes. So it's a little bit back on the heels. And this just prevents the bar from, as you start to pick it up off the ground, the tendency is to swing forward a little bit. And if you're a little bit more on your heels, it helps to keep the bar on the legs over the midfoot the whole way. So back to our setup procedure, and I'll walk you through. So right there, you notice that when you put the bar down, you put it in front of the middle of your foot. There's a little gap in here between the bar and the middle and your shin, right? It's supposed to be here, you put it here. Fine. That happens all the time. Nobody's really that good where they put it directly over the middle of their foot every time. That's why we have round plates, so that you can roll the bar back to your shins before you start the next rep. So the right way to do this is you set the bar down, right? Now, again, if you didn't set it directly over the middle of your foot, that's fine. You're probably going to set it a little in front. The next step is you shove your butt back up in the air, right? You push your hips back up to where they were for that first rep where you started that setup procedure, okay? And the way that you know that your hips are the right height for the deadlift is you push your hips up until you feel it grab behind the knees, until you feel the hamstrings tighten up behind the knees, right? Where's my little thing? So right back here, if you shove your butt up in the air to a certain point, that hamstring it'll snag, and you'll feel a lot of tension right behind your knee. That's where your hips go. Okay, so if you don't feel that tightness in the tendons of the hamstring behind your knee, your butt's too low. And that means the bar is probably forward to the middle of your foot. It's not the right position. So here's what you do. Okay. And I already walked you through the first rep, but that 5-step setup procedure for the first rep is great because it's, if you follow it, it's going to be a perfect deadlift. The problem is after the first rep, you don't go through those 5 steps every time. You don't stand up and walk away and do it again. You keep your hands on the bar. So you have to remember what that position felt like. Okay. And so for reps 2 through 5, or in your case, 2 and 3. So you set the bar down, right, on the ground. Fine. The next thing you do is you push your butt back up in the air until you feel the tension in the hamstrings behind the knees. Okay. Then you'll notice that when you do that, your shins have pulled back, right? Because you lifted your butt and your shins and knees moved back a little bit, right? So now there's an even bigger gap between your shins and the barbell because you lifted your hips. So you roll the bar back to your shins, okay? And the mistake a lot of people make in the deadlift is they put the bar in front of the middle of their foot a little bit, and then they squat down lower to it. They know their shins are supposed to touch the bar, so rather than roll it back to their shins, they just drop their shins more. And by the 5th rep, when their hips were up nice and high like this, the 5th rep looks like a squat because they just keep putting the bar forward and then squatting lower, putting the bar forward and squatting lower. And every time that bar has to swing back, the hips have to come back up, the bar has to come back over the middle of their foot, and there's all this extra effort and wasted energy, right? Rather than just starting the rep right over the middle of the foot with the hips nice and high. Okay, so bar, right, down a little bit in front of the middle of your foot, shove your butt up in the air till you feel the tension, roll the bar back to your shins, okay? So now, and then once you're there, bar on the shins, hips high, then you're gonna rock your weight back just a little bit onto the heels, okay? Get off the toes, little bit of pressure on the heels. So hips up, bar back, weight back on the heels a little bit. Now you're ready to start the deadlift setup procedure, which is breathe, squeeze, pause, pull. Breathe, squeeze, pause, pull. So you got the hips up, you got the bar on the shins, and the weight back on the heels. Take a breath, squeeze your chest up, pause to make sure that you set your back as hard as you possibly can, and that in the process of setting your back, you didn't drop your butt again and bump the bar forward again, right? If you did, you have that little pause to roll it back and then pull. Breathe, squeeze, pause, pull. Breathe, squeeze, pause, pull. We talked about this a lot last time. Okay? So once you do that, this is going to be a lot cleaner. So let me watch the remainder and see if I notice anything else. So see, every time you're turning this into a squat, right? You're dropping your butt more. Yeah. Let's go through it one more time and these are the big points. again, this is a lot of weight. So this is you're doing a good job, but we can make this more efficient. So hips up, bar back, right? See how you're squatting down to it every time? That's not what we want. So I'm going to leave you with that. There's some other things in here that we could clean up, but for now, I think that's a good enough place to start. Okay. And then make sure that you take the time during that breathe, squeeze, pause, pull progression. When you squeeze your chest up, you give it, I want your back to look like a U, or I want you to attempt to make it look like a U. It's not, but I want you to think about that big of an arch, because you've got one shot at setting your low back in extension before you pick up a bunch of weight. So squeeze it up, right? And then hold it, make sure you're as tight as you can be, and then just drag it up your legs. Okay? Gave you a lot to work on, threw a bunch at you there, but I think this will be helpful for a lot of people because these are very common issues with the deadlift. So thanks for posting. Post up another one next week or so, and we'll check it out and see if you fixed everything. I'm sure you will. Okay, we got three more. Okay, I'm talking a lot. How much time do I have? All right. Okay, Anne. Oh, thank God she posted again. This is the one where I thought last time I was looking at a teenage boy and called him the whole time, and it was very embarrassing. So I apologize again. Thank you for reposting or posting up another one. Let's see what we're dealing with here. Okay. Good. I think last time we were working on keeping the knees out harder. Much better. Okay, you're lifting your chest a little bit. Just 3 reps. Okay, whatever. We can work with this. So I'm going to watch one more time, and there's a few things I want to bring up. Socks on point. One of the things, if you don't, I would get a belt. I would get a 3-inch belt if that's in the budget. It's quite useful. So I'm watching your back angle to see that was a pretty good rep. But I think this last one we're gonna get chesty. These are pretty good. Let's go. And so everything in the upper body looks great. I think just like last time. Yeah, I'm nitpicking here, but I would just try and focus on staying leaned over longer on the way up. You're doing a good job with the hip drive. You're probably starting to lift I can see your head kind of go back a little bit. You're probably starting to lift your chest like a little early, but so if I was standing behind you, I would just yell at you to lean over and stay leaned over. Stay leaned over longer than you want to. If you want to start lifting your chest here, wait another second before you pop it up. But again, I'm looking for stuff to criticize you. You can see your head kind of kick back. We've talked about that. So one of the things, one of the things that I think will help you is to move your gaze real even closer to your feet. Like I might even experiment with, I'm assuming you're looking at this little thing down here. I might experiment with actually trying to look straight down. And again, keep an eye on your knees. If you see them in your peripheral vision come in, you're trying to build this connection between your brain and your knees, where if you see them come in, you shove them right back out. You just make them go out. And a lot of times, moving your gaze even closer could help. I think I probably told you to move it closer last time. But I think you might experiment with moving it like almost straight down, because you're still kicking your head back a little bit there. Yeah, that last rep you're trying to... So on the last rep when you're tired, right? just try and keep this in mind. Everybody has technique that they sort of default to when things get heavy, right? So you know the way you should do it, but once you're tired and the weights are hard, you just sort of revert. You're like, I just want to be done with this set. And you revert back to, you know, what you used to do. So you got to know what those things are. And everybody has their own issues, right? So yours is when I get tired on the squat, I start lifting my chest too soon and I don't do as much hip drive as I should for as long as I should. So now I'm going to remember going into rep 2 and especially rep 3 that I'm going to try and exaggerate those things on those later reps. So, you know, you're probably good on rep 1 and 2, but just, okay, it's rep 3 and I always underdo it on the hip drive and, you know, getting out of my hips too soon. So I'm going to stay leaned over longer on rep 3 and I'm going to drive my hips up more than I think I should. And I'm going to keep my knees shoved out harder than I think I should. I'm going to try and add, you know, do 110%. And a lot of times that'll help build that motor pattern where you're sort of aware of your errors or your common errors, and then you can sort of overcorrect them. And that tends to help a lot. So it's also helpful to have a coach there. So maybe you can get your friend to just scream at you those things I just told you. But yeah, because on that last rep, it just looks like you're starting to kind of push through your shoulders a little bit early. And again, it's the last rep. You want to be done. You're just like, I just want to stand up. But it's actually harder that way, right? It takes more energy to do it incorrectly. So, but overall, the thing we were working on last time with getting the knees out and keeping them out, much better than, you know, big improvement this week. So thank you again for posting. Let's check out that deadlift. Make sure your camera's working this time. I want to see it. And we'll go from there. Great work. Moving on. Deadlift. 335 by 1 by 8. 3 singles in the video. One. Okay. So we're doing... Okay. So we're doing a bunch of singles. 8 singles. It's going to take a while. Okay. I mean, you just pull 8 reps with that. That looked easy. You'd be done with your workout in 10 minutes. Yeah, these are very good. So just kind of see if he's doing shins to the bar. Yeah. Yeah. I'm trying to, I'll find something. So again, if we want to talk about the start procedure and, you're getting to the right position. So, but if we're going to optimize your start position and your ability to get into the same exact position every time, then we want to sort of formalize that process. And I would recommend that you set your feet up first, right? And then reach down and grab the bar with the legs straighter, as straight as you can keep them. And then drop your shins to the bar, just like I talked about in the previous video, right? So step 1 is stance. Step 2 is reach down and grab the bar with your legs as straight as you can. Don't move the bar. Step 3, drop your shins to the bar. As soon as they touch, that's your hip height. Step 4, take a big breath. Step 5, drag it up your legs. But you're doing a good job of getting that pause in there. And I mean, overall, this is, yeah, I mean, these look great. Yeah, if anything, you're not bumping the bar forward. So at least it's hard. So with one rep, you can do one perfect rep. A lot of things go wrong when someone tries to do a set, right? Because now you're not doing that exact setup procedure every time, and you got to get yourself back in the right position. So kind of curious to see what would happen if we did, instead of singles, a set of 3 to 5. But in terms of pulling one rep, I don't have a lot of complaints here. Because look, you're not really dropping your butt much. Maybe the bar could drag up your legs a little bit closer. It's hard to tell from this distance, but it looks like it might, you could keep it in closer contact with the legs. Maybe after the knee, it could come onto the thigh a little bit sooner. But again, I'm really reaching for something to comment on here. We'll watch one more. But for everybody else watching, again, I'm always hammering the pause before you pull. And he's doing a great job of setting his back and then holding it and then going. Yeah, we'll see one more. Is this all the same rep? Yeah, okay. Yeah, nothing. I got nothing. these are good. Like, you know what? Let's check out the lockout. Let me make sure I see the finished position, but I didn't notice anything there, so. Yeah, no, you're solid, man. You look pretty good here. So, great. Again, I feel like you could do 8 of those. No problem. All right. What do we got? Okay. My man, Ryan. Oh, here we go. Okay. Looks like you got a... Here's the third attempt at bench press. Went down from 190 to 185 and got all 5. All right. So, we're going to see Ryan grind. Ryan likes to grind. All right, what do we got here? See if I can blow this up. Feet are back more. I like that. I like that. So I believe we talked about this, and if not, you're just doing a great job. I think we covered this before in a previous video, but I like this angle here, right? His feet are here. And he's tucked back under. And what we talked about last time was you want to be so stable on that bench that you're not wobbling around. And all you have to do is focus on lowering the elbows up and down. If you have to move a bunch of weight and worry about, like, am I going to fall off this bench? And you're just loose, you're wasting a lot of energy to do that. And so one of the things that I told you to do was to get your feet back under you. So the advice is usually you're going to walk your feet back underneath your butt until your heels start to lift up off the ground about an inch. So as soon as your heels come up an inch off the ground, stop and then jam your heels down onto the ground, right? Wedge them down, and that puts a whole bunch of tension on the quads here. And it just keeps you tucked in. It's just like the whole system is just tense from the shoulders all the way down to the feet, right? And then you're locked in, and then you don't have to worry about any more bracing because you're basically, you've wedged yourself in so much you can't really wiggle around. And then the entire focus is just on moving the weight up and down in a relatively straight line. So let's see how we do here. Let me back it up because I want to see the whole deal. And he took the collars off the bar. Okay, thank God. Good job. Ryan, you're killing it this week. Good. Good. Fast. Too fast. Okay. So, dude, like, everybody who cares and is watching this, I want you to just watch his legs, okay? And we'll just skip to a couple reps in, but just look at his knees, his whole lower body, right? They're just solid. Like, they're moving like a tiny bit, but before, the knees were like wiggling around, his feet were moving, and now he's just like locked in there. So this helps. It takes away all the other stuff you have to think about, and it lets you focus entirely on just moving the weight, right? And this is what we want when we talk about tightness. So, quick story, since this is the last video. I had when I was working out at this powerlifting gym early in my training career, there was this guy there, and he was probably in his 60s, maybe he looked, and he was like the nicest guy, but he looked like, I think he was like an accountant. totally unassuming dude. You wouldn't think anything other than he's just like a nice older guy. And he would come in like khakis and a blue Oxford shirt and just like super friendly, you know, kind of just great guy. And then he would go in the changing room and he would come out and he was just jacked. I mean, like legs like tree trunks. He would always wear these like little tiny shorts, and he was like a 600 plus pound squatter. I mean, he had just been doing Olympic weightlifting and powerlifting since he was in college. And it was amazing. It was, if you sized him up like I did when you first met him, you'd be totally wrong. He was so strong and so nice, and he helped me a lot. And one of the things he would do anytime I was attempting a heavy squat, which at the time was like I was trying to do 315 for one or something, and he would get behind me and he would just scream like, "Get tight, get tight!" And I was like, "What the fuck are you talking about? I don't know what that means." And it took me years to figure out what all these people are yelling about when they're saying get tight, get tight. And what it means is exactly what's happening on Ryan's bench. It's tension. You want tension throughout your entire body, right? If anything that can be squeezed, fingers, right? Wrists, forearms, biceps, abs, quads, calves, glutes, anything that you can squeeze before you move the bar, you need to squeeze it, right? So when you unrack a squat, that setup where you step back and you take your breath, you are trying to create tension throughout your entire body, right? And then hang on to it and just move the things that need to move. The knees need to move, the knees need to unlock, the hips need to unlock, right, to do the squat. But everything else, you are fighting to keep everything as tight as possible, because there's no slop that way, or it minimizes slop and it's just more efficient, right? So you have control of the bar, and only the things that need to move are moving, and it makes the whole thing tighter and smoother. And it feels easier. And this is the only way you lift heavy weight, is you figure out how to do this, right? So this is what Ryan's doing here, where before his feet weren't as pulled back and he was kind of wobbly on the bench and he was dropping the bar real fast. All of that is loose. He's loose. His legs are loose. When you drop the bar that quickly, you're in order for that bar to travel so fast, you have to just loosen up. Right? Instead, you need to be thinking about fighting it. Like you're almost, there's a powerlifter thing where they say you're trying to bend the bar or pull the bar apart on the way down. It's not a passive thing to just let that bar come down. You're actively resisting it and controlling it. And then once you stretch out onto the pecs, firing it up. Right? And it's the same thing in the deadlift. We talked about, when you're squeezing your chest up, that pause where you're trying to, from the moment that you start setting up for the rep, you're trying to steadily increase the amount of tension in your body until like you take off, right? You explode because you've generated so much tension. That's the concept. So this is why it's really important that you take time in between reps to reset that start position and get tight again. Because if you just go from one rep to the next, it's just going to be sloppy and loose and inefficient, and you're going to waste a bunch of energy, trying to stabilize yourself and not fall, that you could be dedicating to lifting the weight instead of, trying to fix a whole bunch of different things at the same time. So we get Ryan tucked in here tight, and all he's got to do is move his elbows up and down. Now on that last rep, we'll watch it one more time. Again, it's your last rep. You're tired. You want the set over with. I get it. But know that you do that. Know that when it comes later in the set, you just kind of like, screw it, I'm going to just drop this thing. And notice how slow that rep is. And the reason that it's so slow, yes, it's the last one, but the reason it's dramatically slower than the ones before it is because you had to loosen up to drop it that fast. And once you're loose, you can't retighten that, right? If you had made the speed of the descent for that rep similar to the ones earlier in the set, the ascent would be faster because you wouldn't have gotten loose and you would have more stability and you'd have more resources to focus on driving it back up. You wouldn't have lost any of that tightness. Now you're loose and you're just like, oh, you just got to grind it up and hope that you make it. So keep that bar speed as close on the way down as you can from rep to rep. But other than that, I mean, you know what you did. Other than that, this is much better than last time. And this may be the first video you posted where you didn't miss a rep, where you didn't fail. So amazing. Yeah, I'll be honest. When you said you only dropped 5 pounds, and I was like, oh, well, you're not going to get that. Like if you're failing at 190, you're probably not going to get 185 for 5. But I think with the form tweaks and making this all tighter and more efficient, like you're getting the idea here. You can lift more weight that way, obviously, right? Everything's smoother and you're wasting less energy. So just slow down. Just, don't rush the last rep. It's not a set of 5. It's 5 individual reps, and each one gets the same amount of love. Each one gets the same amount of attention, right? Between each rep, go through the setup procedure, get yourself tight, right? Rep 5 is just as important as rep 1. So, and that resetting is just as important. Don't get lazy because you'll miss when you didn't have to. If you just took an extra second to tighten up and create that tension, it's going to be just as smooth as the rep before it. Usually. Sometimes it's not, but I think I nailed everybody. I think I got through everybody in just under an hour. So fantastic. Thank you guys for posting again. I'm now looking forward to this. This is like my favorite day of the week where I get to do this. So thank you. And I'll see you guys online. And if you have any questions or anything like that about things I talked about, I'll post up the thread or the link to the video when it's up, and you can comment in there and ask me, or on the YouTube channel, either one, and I can address anything that didn't seem clear. Great work, guys. Go work on the things that we talked about, and post another video next week, and we'll do this all again. Take care, guys.